Senator Tim Scott. Senator, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Good morning, Jen. Thanks for having me.
Okay, you've been in the headlines because you were name-checked by President Obama. He's been talking about Republicans and race. Here's a bit of what he said on a podcast this week.
I think there is a long history of African American or other minority candidates within the Republican Party who will validate America and say everything's great and we can all make it.
He says it's fair to be skeptical of candidates who don't acknowledge and have a plan to address hundreds of years of racism. You've talked about your own experiences being followed by store clerks, being pulled over, even having a hard time sometimes getting into the Capitol, attesting that you are actually a senator. Do those experiences make President Obama's point?
Absolutely not. There's no higher compliment to be attacked by President Obama. Whenever the Democrats feel threatened, they drag out the former president and have him make some negative comments about someone running, hoping that their numbers go down. Here is what people need to know. The truth of my life disproves the lies of the radical left. You talk about addressing the issue of poverty. My opportunity zones have seen more than $50 billion go into the poorest, hardest hit communities in this country. The majority of them are minority. Think about the HBCU funding that in his administration, he totally missed it. We took the funding for HBCUs to the highest level in the history of the country. And then, Shannon, we made it permanent. And the radical left and the teachers unions refused to allow quality education in big blue cities. I support school choice because I support common sense. The radical left and President Obama, they have failed, and they have failed. We will make it happen. Under my administration, we will make sure that kids have quality education in every single zip code. We'll work on Opportunity Zones 2.0 to make sure that we bring more resources, more opportunities, and more jobs to the hardest hit areas, whether that's rural Iowa or inner city Chicago. There is a way for us to alleviate poverty, not by race, but by the statistics themselves. That's what America stands for. And if anyone should be standing and shouting at the mountaintops that America is not a racist country, it should be the man that Americans supported twice for the nomination and becoming president. The evolution of America is palpable. Progress in this nation, undeniable.
So let's talk about how you get to a Scott administration. Real Clear Politics average has you about 3.3%. President Trump's at nearly 53%. So can you give me a place or two, a policy or two, where you're different from him and you're offering something better?
Certainly. The one thing I will say is as I continue to campaign in Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina, our voters, primary voters, are starving for a message filled with optimism, hope, anchored in conservative values with a backbone. My numbers continue to climb where I am campaigning. That is good news. We've moved to third place in the polls in Iowa and recently third place in New Hampshire as well. People are responding incredibly positive to the message of hope and opportunity as long as we talk about it from a conservative perspective. I'm the most conservative person in the race for president.
So are you saying that this idea of being conservative, this idea of being optimistic, that's different than what President Trump is offering?
Well, what I'm saying is that the voters are responding to my message. That's good news, number one. The size of my audiences continue to grow. The enthusiasm continues to go higher. So, yes, my policy positions talking about the next era of exponential innovation, where we're bringing manufacturing home, talking about the fact that we are right in the midst of a Cold War, economic Cold War with China. Having the ability to secure our borders and to stop 70,000 Americans from losing their lives to fentanyl, to stop 6 million people from crossing our borders illegally and 100 folks on our national watch list, but more importantly, to address the failures of the radical left and Joe Biden. Our Americans continue to face crippling inflation, 16% since he's taken office. As a guy raised in a single-parent household, mired in poverty, when my mom's gas goes up by 40%, the electricity 20%, food by 20%, this is a crisis. Having lived on both sides of that proverbial track means that my life disproves the narrative of the left, but it also reinforces that in America, any kid from anywhere at any time can rise beyond their circumstances because we as a nation continue to provide opportunities not based on the color of your skin, but by your character, your grit, and your talent.
You talk a lot about this optimistic, positive message. Politico quotes a GOP strategist saying this: right now, the mood of the Republican base is nothing but grievance. A positive fighter like Tim Scott will just have a hard time reaching those voters emotionally, reaching them in their hearts. So how do you convince voters who want a fighter, and most of them in your party see that in President Trump, that what you offer can be just as effective?
Well, fighting is good, but winning is better. We've lost 7 out of the last 8 presidential elections as it relates to the popular vote, 3 in a row. What we have to do as a party and what we need as a nation is someone who stands on American values with the power of persuasion. Americans today need to be persuaded that we're not talking about red or blue, black and white. We're talking about the future, not the past. I provide the necessary incentive to bring people to the table so that we get the job done. Let's go and get it done.
You have said that you think the DOJ indictment of President Trump is a serious issue. Do you believe it's politically motivated? You've said you would restore integrity at the DOJ. What would you do?
The first thing we have to do is fire Joe Biden. The second thing we do is fire Merrick Garland. And the third thing we do is fire Chris Wray. We have to clean out the political appointments in the Department of Justice to restore confidence and integrity in the DOJ. Today, we want to know that in our justice system, Lady Justice wears a blindfold, and that all Americans will be treated fairly by Lady Justice. But today, this DOJ continues to hunt Republicans while they protect Democrats. And it's not just a former president. Think about the fact that a pro-life activist, his home was invaded by a SWAT team, guns pulled. Think about parents who show up at school board meetings. By this DOJ, they're called domestic terrorists. And then weaponizing the DOJ against your political opponents, I can't think of anything more un-American and more unacceptable.
Okay. Do you think that the indictment is political in nature? Just want to make sure we get you on that. And will you sign on to a pledge that our next guest is asking all GOP candidates to sign on to, that you would pardon President Trump if convicted and you became president?
Well, I'm not going to deal with the hypotheticals, but I will say that every American is innocent until proven guilty.
Okay, Senator Scott, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shannon.
And a reminder, you can